The season winding down and the Beavers still searching for success. It won't come easy, though, this weekend as they face Arizona, led by one of the nation's leading rushers, quarterback Khalil Tate. But the Wildcats' defense has struggled. What will it take for the Beavers' offense to get it going in Tucson? All that and more on a brand new edition of Go Beavs. Oregon State is in Tucson, Arizona tonight as they get ready to take on the Arizona Wildcats in a Pac-12 showdown. Both teams looking to bounce back after losses last weekend. Welcome into another edition of Go Beavs. Amanda Maynard, Jason John Baptiste, Lindsay Schnell. What are you guys looking for this weekend?
Gosh, well, first of all, look at that blue sky. That's beautiful. When I talk about why it's hard to recruit to Corvallis, that's like, and that's a reason why.
Nobody wants to play in the rain.
Yeah.
The thing I'm most interested to see is, look, I don't think they can stop Tate, but, you know, I think maybe you can slow him down. And I'm curious to see what is the game plan to do that with him. You know, Rich Rodriguez, the Arizona coach, is one of the best schemers in college football. He invented the read option. So he's going to have a great counterpunch, whatever they do. But that's what I'm most interested to see. Or is their attitude like, Tate, run everywhere, we'll have other people.
Which she's been doing for the past 5 games. So I'm interested in seeing that as well. But one of the things I want to see is whether or not they're able to run the ball. Like, is the reemergence of the running game going to come back this game? And if they're able to, you know, give Noel the ball for him to run for 100 yards, because they're going to have to keep up. This is going to be an all-out duel, you know, between two opposing offenses.
It's got to be a shootout.
And it's going to be a shootout, absolutely. So, I mean, they're going to have to score points. So how do you score points if you're at Oregon State? You run the ball, you score touchdowns running the ball, not
keep the ball, too. You run the ball, you keep the ball. This is a game where winning time of possession would matter a lot, I think.
And we're going to have a lot more on those topics, plus a little talk about the coaching candidates. But I also want to know, how do you feel like Coach Hall is going to keep this group together? How do you do that? It's been a rough season for these guys.
It has
been. Only 3 games left.
It has been. And I mean, the most difficult thing for him is, you know, being on the road. I think, and we've seen in both games that he had playing at Oregon State and Corvallis, they were able to compete. They were able to keep the, you know, the game close. The one game that he's had away from home, he struggled with. You know, so I think, you know, with playing against Arizona, playing against the offense as potent, I mean, we're talking about the number 8 offense in the country. You know, one of the top rushing attacks in the country. A player in Tate who's dynamic, who could, you know, take the ball and hurt you running the ball, but also who could throw the ball as well. A true dual threat quarterback. So, I don't know. We'll see.
I wonder how much of, you know, their success the first couple weeks is no one expected them to win. You know, in the day, you know, 4 days after Gary Anderson leaves, and then you play Stanford, and everyone thought Bryce Love was going to play. Then they go to Cal, and people are saying they can win, they can win, they can win, and then they feel pressure. So I don't think anyone's picking them. I mean, they're 23-point underdogs.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a chance that maybe that helps them, you know, build that. I don't even. It's not even chemistry at this point. It's just like belief in each other.
Yeah, they have to come. They have to come together. Because what else do you have? It's us against the world kind of mentality that you have right now in Oregon State in that locker room. If I'm a player, I'm like, you know what? No one's believing in us. No one cares about us. We're 1-8. What else do we have to lose? It's us against the world.
And it's kind of a weird balance right now because obviously you're focused on the remaining games on the season, but you're still looking towards the future, building for the future. A big part of that, of course, is who is going to be the next head coach. There were some rumblings that maybe Les Miles was going to be talked about. Then there were some tweets about those reports being refuted, that he has not been contacted. We asked you, do you want him to be the next head coach for Oregon State? It's, again, very split, but just by a narrow margin, 51% of you saying yes and 49% saying no. We're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show because I know Lindsay has some strong thoughts about whether or not he should be. What do you guys, what do you think about that, Jason?
Well,
do you think he's a viable candidate?
Listen, we spoke about this on Wednesday, and those numbers aren't overwhelming, obviously. But the one thing that I could tell you from those numbers and what I can entertain it and I understand is that from the Oregon State fan base perspective, you want someone who's going to bring some kind of energy, some kind of hype along with them. Les Miles does that. Above all else is that he does that because of his name recognition, because of what he's been able to do as a coach at LSU. Not saying that, you know, he's an offensive-minded coach. We all know that he's not. But he won a national championship there. How many coaches can say that? Not many. Now, how many coaches could say that and then also want to come to Oregon State? Now, we don't know if he's coming to Oregon State. We don't know that if he wants to come to Oregon State. But we're just, you know, we're playing the hypotheticals here, right? So
wait, I have a question. Here's my thing, okay? So first of all, I already said why he's not a good candidate, and it's not true. It's been refuted by multiple reporters. But do you want someone who is willing to look at Oregon State as a stepping stone job? Because if Les Miles came here, he would be looking to get out as soon as he had any sort of success. He's not from here. You can't win it would be very hard to win a national championship here. So are you okay with him then leaving in 5 years?
yes.
Interesting.
You know,
Part of the problem is that they need someone who wants to be here.
Okay, so here's the thing for me, and this is from again from a player perspective. I want someone who's going to come in here and make the program better than what they had it when they got it. So if Les Miles comes in here and he decides to leave in 5 years, well, why would he want to leave in 5 years? It's because he's been super successful. I want that. So as long as there's some kind of longevity with the person who comes in after him, maybe it's one of his assistant coaches, maybe it's someone who, you know, is the D coordinator, offensive coordinator. If that team is still successful after he leaves, I could care less if he leaves.
I do want to say
him
one
successful.
thing. Gary Anderson wanted to leave after 2.5 years, and it wasn't for a better job. So you have to think about that.
I want to look at some of the candidates that you guys proposed, maybe have been hearing about. Again, it's a pretty lengthy list. I want to know from Lindsay, which of these are guys that you think would stay, and it wouldn't necessarily
Bo Baldwin.
Be that stepping stone. Okay.
100%. Bo Baldwin. You know, okay, so he's mid-40s. I think he's 46. I'm not positive. Bo, if you're watching this and you're younger than that, I'm sorry. So that's someone that would take this and make it his job forever. You know, someone like Jonathan Smith, who again I don't think is a good candidate for a lot of reasons. I don't care that he's an alum. I think he would totally leave for a bigger job, more money, a better job. June Jones is someone that I think would stay. I think you want to talk about someone that would check the box of being, you know, different offensively and can coach quarterbacks. The other name that's on that list that's kind of being thrown around and is going to be in, you know, very high demand in the SEC, which is going to have a lot of coaching openings, is Tosh Lupoy. I think that's how you say his last name. I'm not positive. He is one of, if not the best recruiter in the country. He's currently the Alabama defensive line coach, but has a history on the West Coast, coached at Cal, coached at UW. He's someone that could potentially come and stay for maybe a while, but he's so young. This would be his first head coaching job, so I'm doubtful.
Yeah, I like those names. I mean, I like Tosh, the defensive, you know, line coach over at Alabama. I think he would be someone that definitely, you know, brings in a lot of, you know, people that would want to come here just based upon him being a coach at Alabama. I also think Jonathan Smith is a good candidate. I know that he doesn't have the coaching history that some of these other coaches have.
How about Dennis Erickson still being on that list? We were like,
so evidently
really?
Dennis Erickson has said he wants the job. That doesn't mean I think he's going to get it by any means. But
yeah, I mean, you know, I've always been Dennis Erickson.
He has been open. I will say this. Dennis Erickson has told a lot of people. He told Kalani Sitake, the former Oregon State defensive coordinator, that the biggest mistake of his career was leaving Oregon State.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should have left here. So.
What about Neuheisel? Because that was a name that came out not that long ago.
Great guy, couldn't win at UCLA. Not sure how he's going to win somewhere that's tougher.
Yeah, I don't think he's. Yeah.
All right, a little later on the show, it is a showdown between Steven Jackson and Ken Simonton in our Damn Best bracket. And the Beavers going up against one of the nation's best players, as we were just talking about, in Khalil Tate. What should we expect from the defense? Well, no one has had a better October than Arizona quarterback Khalil Tate. He has run for almost 1,000 yards. He's thrown for about 889 yards, making many people make comparisons to another famous dual threat quarterback, Michael Vick. That is in our Buster's Barbecue Q&A.
I'm not going to take away from Tate, but I mean, that's Michael Vick. Come on now. Like you said, I played with Michael Vick, and no. And I'm not saying that to knock the kid. What I'm doing is, Michael Vick was a special player, and now I understand the comparison, right? Because he's a mobile quarterback and he's made some extraordinary plays with his feet. And but now you're talking about the difference of 4-2, 4-1. I do believe that Khalil Tate is a tremendous athlete, and I do not believe that one player makes a team because, again, you have 10 other guys out there blocking for him.
Let's take a look at at those two's college numbers, you can see Michael Vick throwing for a lot more yards, of course. That was 22 games. But what do you guys think about this comparison? Is there any semblance of a Michael Vick and Khalil Tate?
I mean, he favors him just in his ability and how dynamic he is, but he's not the athlete that Michael Vick was. I mean, Michael Vick was a special kind of athlete. I mean, his speed, he had you know how they say people have like a second gear? Michael Vick had a third gear and a fourth gear after that. I mean, Khalil Tate, he's long-legged. He picks up a lot of yards without having to stride as much as other guys do. He's more, quick, if you want to say that, than anything else, but Michael Vick is definitely a different kind of athlete.
The other thing, too, I think, for me, when we talk about player comparisons, what did you do to help your team? Tate has piled up incredible numbers. He won the October Heisman, as people like to say about September, but Michael Vick took his team, they played in a BCS Bowl, right? At one point during his career. What has Arizona done? Tate did not look good in their premier matchup last week against USC in the first half when all these eyes were on him. So I think he's incredible, but it sort of reminds me of when Brandon Cooks was playing at Oregon State and there was that receiver who played for Colorado. What's his name? He plays for the Seahawks now.
Baldwin. No.
Anyway, he had great numbers, and Paul Richardson, thank you. And I was thinking, I said one day, like, someone has to be good. On a bad team, someone still has to be good. Someone has to put up numbers. So, again, I think Tate is really good, but no, I don't think he compares to Michael Vick in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like you were saying, he really is this Arizona team. There's not a lot around him on offense. Yeah. What do you do as a defense? Where do you even start with him?
Okay, can I tell you?
He can throw the ball, he can run it.
Did you write down punt? Because you were so upset that they didn't tell him not to punt at all. I figured that was going to be your number one thing. Force him to punt like 25% of the time.
Either that, or if they're having, that much of a hard time stopping him, maybe play with 12 guys on the field.
Why not? Take the penalty.
Just take the penalty, whatever, do something like that. I don't know. I mean, truth of the matter is that here's a kid that, he's been averaging, 200 yards rushing the ball as the quarterback. His QBR has been 100 plus, in the 5 games. He's thrown for 8 touchdowns. He's ran for 9 touchdowns. I mean, and this is just in 5 games.
Sure.
So he's been playing insane. He didn't have that great of a game against USC, but again, USC has a different caliber of athlete and players than Oregon State has. They're playing at Arizona, so there's that aspect of it too. Yeah.
One thing that I would say is that if the Beavers can't contain Tate, I wouldn't view that as a huge failure by Oregon State, because realistically, no one in the country has figured out how to stop the read option.
Sure.
I mean, across the country, like, it hurts Alabama. So I think that Jason was right in what he said earlier about, how do you deal with Tate? You have to be able to score the ball.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
You see, and the funny thing about this is that, is this guy not the perfect quarterback for a Rich Rodriguez offense?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing that he was sitting on the bench.
I know. It's like, this is the type of guy. I mean, he was recruited by, Florida State. He was recruited by
I believe, wasn't it one point he was also recruited by Oregon State? He was targeted by Brent Brennan, allegedly. So
Yeah,
that would have been nice, but...
everyone wanted this kid.
He was recruited by USC too, right? But they weren't going to let him play quarterback, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so...
All right, much more to come on the show as we get our panel's key returners as Oregon State looks to bounce back as a program. And after the break, Mike Parker is weighing in on what the Beavers offense needs to do against Arizona. Score.
Back to Garrettson, and then the home run shot to Billiman. 2 to 10. Comes the underneath throw. There's the deep shot off play action. This time, Garrettson, man, he got the time and goes back to Hodges. And Garrettson has the middle, and there's a first down.
Well, could this be the week that we see the passing game going? Perhaps, maybe? Arizona 128 out of 130 teams when it comes to pass defense, giving up about 300 yards a game. Do you think that we're going to see the passing game start to get going? Maybe fully get going?
I mean, they have to. I think the problem is that everyone knows they need to pass the ball to beat Arizona, but everyone also knows they struggle to pass the ball. But if you can get going early on the road and get that confidence, I think that could go a long way. But we haven't seen Garrettson be able to throw consistently, and who on this team has been a consistent receiver? Probably Noah Tongiai is probably the best one, and even he struggled.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about this, like, off camera, too, where it's like, you know, yeah, you want to pass the ball, but here we are, and we played 8 games now. And let me read you some stats. So right now, oh, yeah, the stats there you go.
They're not impressive.
They're not very impressive at all. I mean, 26 receptions, 317 yards receiving to lead the team in both categories is
a single touchdown across the board, too.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
one touchdown
it's
through that
ridiculous.
many games.
So you have to be better at throwing the ball. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to face.
Why do you think they've struggled so much?
Because Garrettson's not a good passer.
Yeah, I mean,
that's as simple as that. But even when Luton was in there, it was still.
No, it was better.
It was better.
Yeah,
and people knew he was a threat. That was a big thing. They weren't going to stack the box against him like they do against Garrettson.
Right. I mean, listen, when Luton went down, one of the first things that I think we all said was that, okay, well, you're going to lose your downfield ability to threaten the defense. Now, we didn't know the extent to which that was going to be. I think we kind of had an idea, but this has been, I mean, it's been brutal. It's been brutal. I mean, when you're unable to pass the ball from a defensive standpoint, as a former defensive player, you have your ears peeled back and you know that they're going to run the ball. So you stack the box and you stop every single one of those running backs, which happened last game. Hasn't happened in the previous 2 games when they were playing at home. But Arizona's going to do the same exact thing. Because another thing too is that when you're playing an away game, the crowd gets into it. It's really hard for the quarterback to communicate with his receivers. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things that could go wrong with this game.
All right, we're going to bring in Mike Parker to talk about not only this game, but also the coaching search. Mike, we were just talking about the coaching search a little earlier. And then, of course, last week against Cal, we saw Beau Baldwin showing off that offensive prowess. Corey Hall on the other side. Could we have maybe seen the future of an Oregon State coaching staff?
I suppose it's possible, Amanda. Beau Baldwin's name came up in 2014 when Mike Riley left for Nebraska. There was a lot of buzz and talk about Beau, who was then the head coach at Eastern Washington, where he won a national championship in 2010, where he beat the Beavers with 49 points in 2013. And his offense has been very effective at Cal, even with some depletion in personnel. I thought they were very good, both running and throwing the football against the Beavs in Berkeley. So if it was an audition for Beau, I think he hit it pretty well. On the other side, of course, Corey Hall continues to have a complete buy-in from his players. And as we talked about in another context, I mean, it's possible that the two could end up working together and maybe the best of all worlds if Beau emerges as the #1 candidate.
It's been a very long time since the Oregon State Beavers got a win. Do you believe in the theory that a team needs to learn how to win?
You know, I asked Dennis Erickson that one time, Amanda, and he kind of shook his head no. But then later, after they reeled off 4 straight, he said maybe the answer is yes, because that '99 team, Dennis's first, lost several heartbreaking close games. After getting out to a 3-0 start, they lost their next 3. A couple of them were really close, heartbreaking defeats. Then they reeled off 4 straight. At the end of that streak, he said, maybe we have learned how to win. And I think this team needs to have that breakthrough. And whether that's a teachable skill, if you say, well, they need to learn how to win, there should be a class, 101, learn how to win. Corey Hall has some thoughts about it from his perspective.
Learning how to win, and it's no secret. I believe that starts in January. You know, you don't learn to win during the season. You know, winning is what you do, and it's bred in you. It's in the very fibers of how you work and the little details that you pay attention to. So learning how to win comes along with learning how to prepare.
I don't disagree with Corey at all that the winning begins in the offseason with strength and conditioning and nutrition and all the things the players must attend to get themselves ready for September, October, and November. But I do think there's something to be said for finding a way in a close game to make that last play and win to galvanize you going forward. And the Beavers hope to have that in Tucson tomorrow.
So we know Arizona is going to score some points. We know they're going to put up some big numbers, especially on the ground with Khalil Tate. What kind of output does Oregon State need to have to keep up with Arizona this weekend?
Now, last year's game, Amanda, is the blueprint. You know, the Beavers were quarterbacked by Marcus McMaryion in that game, but they threw for 265. They rushed for 210. That equals 475. Arizona, for all of its prowess offensively, gives up 470 yards per game. The Beavers, I think, need to be in that ballpark again. They may not have as much going in the passing game, but they need to get back to that 200-plus, 250 range in the ground attack. And I think Arizona is susceptible to a good ground game. So the Beavs, if they're in that 450 to 500 range, have a shot to keep up with Khalil and the Cats.
Thanks so much, Mike. In our Hyundai Highlight, we're taking a closer look at the offense and specifically the run game with Thomas Tyner and Ryan Nall's numbers. We heard Mike say kind of where he thinks the offense needs to be, especially with the run game numbers, to beat Arizona. Where do you guys feel like the run game, yardage-wise, needs to be?
I mean, could both of them get 100 yards? That would be
Yeah,
super
that'd be
helpful.
awesome.
They're definitely both capable of
Yeah,
it and
they have
can
the
spell
ability
each
for it.
other. They can be on the field at the same time. Tyner's a really good receiver out of the backfield. You know, all those things could play a role. But to me, one thing I wanted to bring up when we talked about this is a lost season, right? We all know that, okay? They're not going to a bowl game. It's been kind of a disaster. A lot of it's not the fault of the kids. Yeah. Tyner can apply for a 6th year, and he would probably get it. It's not clear if he wants to apply, but can you imagine if they both came back next year?
Right.
That would be incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get Jake Luton back.
It would be a redo, right? I mean,
Exactly.
It would be a redo of what potentially could be, right? I mean, and that's the thing is that we've seen Tyner and Nall be the most successful when they've been on the field at the same time, you know, and I think that's what you have to do in order for you to be successful moving forward, you know, because, you know, Arizona, you have to score points. This is the best way to do it. Have both of them at the same time.
No one knows who's going to get the ball when both of them are on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, a little later in the show, we're handing out our ingredients to victory. But first, what is success over the next 3 weeks? Well, welcome back to Showdown in Tucson for the Beavers this weekend. Still ahead on the show, we are breaking down the top stories of the week with Lindsay, and we'll hand out our ingredients to victory, plus who is moving on in our damn best bracket. So you have Oregon, well, Oregon is last, Arizona State at home, then at Oregon. What is going to define success over these last 3 weeks? Lindsay, you kind of started talking about player development there.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is they just need to compete. Okay, I don't think they're going to beat Arizona, but I think they can beat ASU, and rivalry games are weird. Anything can happen. The Ducks have hardly looked like, you know, champs this season, and who knows if Herbert's going to play or not. But if they can compete, if they can do what they did against Colorado and against Stanford, I think that will give fans a lot to be excited for going forward, you know, no matter who comes in as coach, because I think it means that the players are still playing for each other and not just looking out for themselves.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, you know, the biggest thing coming into this year was the fact that, you know, they had that last game against Oregon where they won the game and they were super competitive. That's what gave us all the energy and excitement about this year. So in order for us to have that going into next year, they need to show that same amount of competition, that same amount of, wherewithal to compete in these games and hopefully win the game. I mean, the ultimate goal is to win the game.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, so if they're able to do that, I think they're heading in the right direction. But yeah, player development is huge. It's huge going into next year.
And I mean, what kind of things that when you say player development, is it just sheer time, practice, experience?
And
like,
confidence.
What are you looking for?
Confidence in what you can do, knowing that you could, compete at this level and be successful. A lot of these kids, I think, especially when GA was at the helm, they didn't really believe in themselves.
Right.
So I think when Coach Hall took over, they started to believe in themselves, and you saw that in the Colorado game and the Stanford game. I mean, like, they literally were a player or two away from winning those games. So have the confidence to, compete, but also to believe in yourself, and then,
I think that comes with reps, too. I think that young kids do need reps right now, especially because since you're not going to go to a bowl game, that's 15 practices you're not going to get. So you want to get young guys reps in practice and in games. I mean, if you're getting blown out at Arizona throw in all the kids that are going to have to
Sure.
play
Yeah.
next year and bench the other people that either didn't get it done or, are tired, whatever. That's big to me.
Yeah, listen, you might find, and speaking to that, you might find a diamond in the rough. That's what happened with
Absolutely,
Khalil Tate.
So
Yep,
true.
I mean,
that's
Khalil
true.
Tate
Yep.
ended up coming in because their starting quarterback got hurt in a Colorado game, ran for 300 yards
Yeah.
rushing, and he never looked back. So, I mean, you might find that diamond in the rough that's sitting on the bench right now, and you don't even know.
Well, and that's what's incredible. Again, to look at the month he's had, and he was on the roster last year and wasn't
Right,
playing, you
right.
know, and look at the performance he's having. So we talked about on Wednesday's show, yours and Evanson's top returners on offense, well, hopefully top returners, as Ryan Null is also on this list, as Noah Togiai is as well. So on offense, Evanson was saying Noah Togiai, Jake Luton, Ryan Null, the most critical on offense to return and do well. And then defense, you said David Morris, Jonathan Willis, and Xavier Crawford.
Yeah.
Who do you feel like is going to actually make the biggest impact in this whole group?
To me, and I say Jake Luton. And it's not so much that I believe and know that he's going to play next year. I think no matter who the starting whoever the quarterback is, the quarterback position as a whole is the most important. Because we talked about being able to throw the ball. We can't throw the ball without a quarterback, right? So Jake Luton to me is the single-handedly the most important person because he plays the most important position on the field, which is the quarterback position.
That's a great point, playing the most important position. To me, it's Noah Togiai, and I say that because I don't think Luton's going to play next year. Even if he gets cleared, I don't think there's anything gained from playing a kid 1 year. But Noah is, first of all, a big-time receiving threat, but can still get so much better. There's so much room for growth. So again, he is going to be a draft-eligible sophomore, but if he comes back, that will be huge for them. He can get better and be used in a multitude of offenses.
So who do you think? What do you think is going to happen at the quarterback position then? So no Jake Luton next year. If you
Maybe, okay, look, you bring someone in, you can get a grad transfer in.
Okay.
Not that has worked out well. But I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, with the incoming coach, they're going to think a lot about. I mean, that's going to be one of the primary questions that they ask is, okay, what's your plan for the quarterback position? Like I said, it's the most important position on the field.
It's too bad that Marcus McMarion isn't here.
I knew that was going to happen.
You know what? It was
He's been
interesting.
killing it,
The
yeah.
Oregonian reported this week that there was, I don't think tension is the right word, but that McMarion did not feel like he had good communication with coaches. He was kind of blindsided when Luton was named the starter, then decided to leave. He's killing it at Fresno State.
Yeah, the communication was definitely
So you both choosing offensive players. Is that what is ultimately you think going to turn this program around in the Pac-12? As
Listen.
we
Yes,
talked
you
about,
have
obviously,
to be able to score in
super
this
dynamic
conference.
offense.
Yeah.
You have to be able to score. Period. The end. I said this the other day. To me, the biggest problem is there's not an offensive lineman on Evanson's list. You win the game in the trenches.
Yeah.
Up front is what matters.
This is the Pac-12. Every single school, from top to bottom, the offense is a threat. Washington State, Washington, USC, Oregon. I mean, all these teams. Arizona.
They can go off at any time. Stanford's probably the lowest on that list because they run such a vanilla situation.
But you look at the SEC and look at how many dominant defenses they have
That's
as well.
because there are dominant defensive linemen that live in the South that want to stay home.
Big, sturdy men
Hard to
right
get those
down
guys
there.
to come out here.
Fast, athletic, yeah.
All right, still ahead. A new offensive matchup in our Damn Best bracket is unveiled. And we're getting to the news of the week with Lindsay in our standard TV and appliance headlines. Well, plenty of Beavers coverage each and every week here on NBC Sports Northwest. Of course, Talking Beavers airs next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Beavers Inside the Huddle airs Thursday at 9. And, of course, Go Beavs Friday nights after Talkin' Ball. Back here with our standard TV and appliance headlines with our veteran reporter, Lindsay Schnell. And we're starting with football and maybe a departure, right?
Yeah, some bad news this week reported by Danny Moran of the Oregonian. 4-star Christian Wallace, who everyone was so excited about. He has been granted his release.
Okay. What kind of impact is that?
Well, here's the biggest thing. First of all, you want to have 4 stars. I talk constantly about it's tough to recruit, and then they get a 4-star, and people want to throw it in my face, and then he can't hang around. That's a problem. Look, people say recruiting rankings are overrated all the time, and I think there's a degree of certainty and truth to that. But the bottom line is that if you go back and you look at the national championships the last 10 years and compare them with the recruiting rankings, it's teams that are ranked high. And you can see on the graphic we're about to show, how often Oregon State gets 4 stars. I mean, only 10 in the last 15 years.
That's crazy, in one 5-star.
One 5-star.
In 15 years.
That was Isaac Sayamalo, of course, the stud offensive lineman. Michael Phillip, who was an offensive lineman, was also a 4 or 5-star. I don't totally remember. He was a 5-star by some places. He never really panned out. But the bottom line is this is a loss for them because at the bottom line, this kid was a really good athlete.
Okay, number 2, we talked about the coaching search a little earlier. But now Lindsay is making it very clear who is not a candidate.
I know, right? I said this the other day that I thought it was ridiculous that he would be a candidate for a variety of reasons. But now multiple people have disputed it. Les Miles, former LSU coach who was fired midway through last season, is not a candidate at Oregon State. He has not been contacted. Now, it's mid-November. Things could change. Maybe he gets back in the mix. But as of right now, he is not. Dennis Dodd from CBS said that. A few other places have said that. So bottom line, no one put, your hopes and dreams with Les Miles.
And you were talking about on Wednesday's show, a lot of your reasoning behind maybe no Les Miles to Oregon State is because he's so defensive oriented.
Yeah,
I mean, do they really need to focus on somebody with a high-powered offensive background?
Look, Oregon State can't throw the ball right now. I think everyone knows that. It's not really a secret, including opposing teams. The bottom line is that they need someone who can develop a quarterback, who can develop a passing game, and that has never been Miles' strength. And again, when he was at LSU, he had the money to go get big-time O coordinators, and it still didn't work out.
And big-time recruits, too.
Yes.
All right, number 3, sticking with football.
It's a big game in the Pac-12 North, you guys. I just had a total brain freeze, but here's the deal. This is a huge game. This is Friday night. Washington goes to Stanford, and when I talked the other night, Amanda, about why it's important to be different, here's an example. Chris Peterson had to explain to his team what a fullback was. That's hilarious, and I think that speaks to how tough Stanford is to prep for. It's tough to mimic them in practice. And, back when Oregon State was running a pro style, a lot of teams said, Oregon State was one of the toughest teams to prepare for because so few teams knew how to run that. So I don't think they necessarily have to go back to a pro style, but doing something different, like running the option, I think would help.
Okay.
That's just an example. So check the standings. That's a big game.
All right, much more to come here on Go Beavs, including what will it take for the Beavers to beat the Wildcats? Lindsay and Jason are giving out their keys. And up next, who is one step closer to being crowned the best player in Oregon State history? We are looking to crown the top performance in Oregon State football history in our Damn Best bracket. The offensive matchup we've been looking at is the one between Steven Jackson and Ken Simonton. So we introduced that last week, and then the winner is Steven Jackson. 4%.
But Ken Simonton would want everyone to know he was the best looking.
Right?
Yeah. I'm sure Stevie J will have some take issue with that. just a little bit.
Y'all never forget, I have to tell this really funny story because it involves Amanda's fiance, Jake. When Steven Jackson came back to speak at Oregon State one year, when Jake and I were both covering the Beavers, that's Amanda's fiance, he's the play-by-play guy for the Timbers. He, at the time, was working for KZI, the ABC affiliate in Eugene. Steven Jackson was talking about, when he first got out of college and thought he was really cool because he had this NFL money, and he's like, I went to Men's Warehouse and bought suits. And Jake was sitting next to me, and he goes, what's wrong with Men's Warehouse?
Oh, my God.
So when I think of Steven Jackson, I think, doesn't shop at Men's Warehouse.
You can take a step up. All right.
Level.
So next, again, you should. You don't shop at Men's Warehouse.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I like you. You've got some nice suits. Okay, so looking at our next matchup, we have Terry Baker versus Brandon Cooks. Who is winning this one?
Oh, come on.
Well, it should be Baker, although we've talked about sometimes recency bias is a thing, and people and young fans don't know who Terry Baker is.
I don't care whether you know who Terry Baker is or not. I mean, the fact of the matter is that he won the Heisman. Period.
Like that you have black and white footage of him.
There's only one player that's ever won the Heisman that's gone to the Oregon State University, and that's Terry Baker.
Also to the University of Oregon, if that's what you're about to say.
Terry Baker, so I mean, come on. It has to be Terry Baker. All due respect to B. Cooks. I love B. Cooks. Was a phenomenal receiver for Oregon State, but Terry Baker, man. I mean, Terry Baker. He should win the whole thing.
He's also like the best athlete in Oregon State history. You know, he played multiple sports.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
All right, you can vote on our Facebook page, facebook.com/NBCS Northwest. So now moving back to the game, bringing it back to the weekend's game, the offense looking to bounce back after against a questionable Arizona defense. We're hearing what Kevin McGibbon has to think about the matchup.
Very similar to Cal, but they're a team that I think is playing, you know, with a lot more energy and belief than what they were playing when we faced them last year at the end of the year. You know, it's a team that's kind of right there in the thick of things in the Pac-12 South, you know, and been playing some really good football, I think, up until last week, 4 straight wins. And so it's a team that was gaining a lot more confidence as they went, where as opposed to last year was maybe kind of losing confidence coming into the point where they played us. And so I see, you know, a defense that's still really young, but they've been opportunistic and they're playing with a lot more energy. You know, I think they've moved some guys around a little bit, and so they're getting a little bit better use out of their personnel. And they're also a little bit more aggressive than what we saw last year, and so they're able to do some more things within their scheme, and you know, so it's going to be a tough challenge for us.
In our Toyota opponent preview, a look at Arizona's defense by the numbers. And 2 weeks in a row, they have given up 600-plus yards in 2 games. We talked a little bit about the pass defense being very poor, but where do you feel like the Beavers have an advantage in this one?
Well, I think that, okay, so in the past game, so they're not good, right? But one thing, and this is like why people were so excited about Jordan Billman when he first got there, Billy is a big target. You know, he was like built for the red zone. So I think that he could be someone that could really step up and hurt a young defense. I also think that when we talk about you got to score, this is a game, I know you're on the road, but you got to go for touchdowns, not field goals. Can't settle for field goals. You have to trust that you will be able to get the ball in the end zone, particularly because they're so bad defensively.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the last 2 games that the Arizona defense has had difficulty stopping on the pass. But look at the quarterbacks that they face.
Right.
Yep.
Luke Falk
Yep.
and Darnold, Sam
Yep.
Darnold. Not the same caliber quarterback. You know, so, you know, all due respect to DG, you know, he's not that type of quarterback that he's going to air out the same way that, you know, that those 2 do. So they're going to have trouble passing the ball to that level that they've been able to, you know, that USC and Washington State was able to do. So you're still going to have to, you know, depend on the run game, and you're still going to have to score touchdowns. You're going to have to score a lot of touchdowns in order to keep up with the Arizona offense.
What do you think it's going to take? I mean, you are who you are at this point. Daryl Garrettson is your quarterback. Jordan Billman, you know, again, is one of your top receivers. What is it going to take for them to do anything this weekend in the passing game? I mean, what is success at this
Well, if
point
you can
when it
get
comes to
Tyner
that?
the ball in space, I think he
Sure.
proved against Stanford. You know, he looked like himself against Stanford, and he's someone that he's shifty enough. He's got good change of direction. He could do stuff. So just throw some short, quick passes.
Well, and
check downs, baby. They're not bad.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too. It's like, let's not forget, that first possession against Cal, you're on the road, first possession, it was an 8-play possession. Every single play with that first possession was a different formation.
Right.
It was something, you showed the defense something different every single play. And what ended up happening? What was the end result? A touchdown.
Right.
And how did they score that touchdown? It was a trick play, right?
Yep.
So that's what you have to
More trick plays.
Yep.
You have to
Where's
institute.
Boise State's
Crazy
playbook?
reverses and all sorts of
You want
stuff.
to score? You want to score touchdowns? If your quarterback can't throw a touchdown, maybe your tight end can throw a touchdown.
Hey, I like it.
you know what I mean? So you have to do things like that. You have to be super creative when you don't have the type of personnel that allows you to run a prototypical style of offense, which right now Oregon State does not have. You know, they don't have that. So you have to do other things.
Work with what you have.
Maybe we should
Exactly.
have
Stop trying to force a
Exactly.
a square peg
Yeah.
into a round hole. Just
Exactly.
We should have a fan vote or drop the craziest play, and then maybe you could submit that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it would
it
work,
might work.
you know?
It might work.
All right, more to come, but right now we're heading to the OSU Beaver store.
Hey Beaver Nation, I'm Melanie. I'm here at the OSU Beaver Store campus location. We're in our Nike section, a huge section of our store. Brand new products in for men and women. I got this summer. I loved it. It was too hot to wear, but I still got it. New orange sweatshirt and the puffer vest with pockets, perfect. We're gonna head over to the men's section and find out what's there. In our men's section, they've updated the gray puffer vest. They've got the hit on the back, love that. And of course they have the orange OSU Go Beavs Nike shoes. You've got to get these. Come in for everything you need and more here at the OSU Beaver Store. Fans start here.
State getting set to face Arizona tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And of course, earlier this season, we thought they had a pretty good chance at beating Arizona. But it's all going to start with Khalil Tate. Can the offense get going for the Beavers? Lots of questions. But right now, time for our ingredients to victory, brought to you by Papa John's. If the Beavers score a touchdown in the game, you win the following Tuesday with Touchdown Tuesday. Just use the promo code Beaver7 for 50% off your online order. So, Lindsay, what is your ingredients to victory?
So I have two. So number one, I think you got to hold Arizona to 28 points or less. They're leading the conference right now in scoring. It's, I think, 43. So 28, you give them a few touchdowns, not too many. And then I think you got to have at least 200 yards receiving, which doesn't sound like very much, but as we've discussed, has been a problem for this team that can't really throw the ball. But I think 200 yards, you can make it work with that.
All right, Jason.
It's funny. So I'm on the other end of the spectrum. As Oregon State, you have to score 30-plus points in
So
order
they
to
win,
beat. Yeah,
but
so
they're together, and we have a
28, so hard to get first.
So that's so funny. And then also, you have to slow down and contain, Khalil Tate. Okay, well, great, Jason. What does that mean? Well, you have to keep him under 150 yards rushing. I think he goes above 150 yards rushing. Arizona is going to win the game, and he's going to have a ball game. He's going to probably be up for the Heisman. But
What
I
do you
think?
how many yards does he have to pass for? Like, what are you trying to keep him under in that?
I think right now he's averaging 177 yards passing. So I think if you keep him like in the 120 range, I think will be a fair estimate. Would be good.
And I think against USC last week, did he have like a 161 maybe on the ground? So
Yeah, 161.
Most of it in the second half.
So here's the other thing that's interesting about Khalil Tate, and this is kind of like a trivia question. Since he's taken over as the starting quarterback, do you know in every single game he's rushed at least one 50-plus yard rush in every single game? And only one.
Not as many as Bryce Love, who's done it every game he's played in, because Khalil Tate was sitting on the bench for the first few games.
Wait,
Bryce Love leads the country in that.
I know, but he also only had 69 yards rushing last game, and he didn't play the game before that.
That's fair.
So real quick, we talked about this on Wednesday's show. Which one of them gets invited to New York City?
Khalil Tate.
This weekend is going to be huge for that because of Stanford, Washington, and then Tate will be on ESPN.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
That'll be huge. I'm not sure. They might cancel each other out.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Lots of dynamic playmakers. Let's see if the Beavers can pull out a win. We'll see you back here for Talking Beavers next Tuesday at 7 p.m.